I'm Cynthia James, and this network is about changing lives one woman at a time. Hello, ladies, and welcome to Women Awakening. I'm your host, Cynthia James, and I am so honored that I get to introduce you to women that inspire me, women that are making a difference on this planet, women who have stepped into their power and their passion because they want to be change makers. They want to change this planet and bring us back to our natural state of love and compassion and caring and nurturing. So I am thrilled that I get to be with you. I want you to know you can subscribe. We're on iTunes, iHeart, Spreaker, Amazon, and on YouTube. So subscribe, come back every week and meet another amazing woman. I'm going to introduce you to someone that I just met, and she was introduced to me, and I was taken by her bio. Her name is Tana Macpherson, and Tana Macpherson-Smith, and she founded ClearMinds Education Ltd. In 2015 to improve mental health in children and teenagers. With over 30 years of experience as an educator and as the mother of 2 children, she knows the day-to-day challenges young people face. So bullying, anxiety, anger, lack of self-esteem, depression, and despair have become more commonplace among children of all ages. And without help, a child's entire life may be negatively affected. You know, we are watching this, yeah? So Tana has worked as a teacher of drama and senior leader in secondary schools, as a boarding school house mistress with 60 13 to 18-year-old girls living with her in her family in a boarding house. She has been a school governor, schools marketing director, and creator of life-changing events for children. Now, today, she's a mental health speaker and a trainer in schools across the UK. A child and adolescent trauma therapist, and thought change transformation coach and a parent coach. Tana has completed her first novel, There's a Monkey on Your Shoulder, and we will talk about that. Tana, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. Nice to be here.
Well, I'm really excited about you and what you're doing. I want to just invite us into your life. You know, where did you come from? How did you grow up? A lot of times women look at successful women or women who are making a difference, and they think they just sort of dropped into it kind of like with a gold spoon in their mouth. And that's not usually the case. So how were you born and how did you grow up?
That's definitely not the case for me. I have a very large family. I've got 6 brothers and sisters, quite complicated family. But when my mother was pregnant with me, she was told that she had a autoimmune disease that meant that she was going to become paralyzed and that she would become quadriplegic and that it was life limiting and that she was going to die. So she learned that when she was 4 months pregnant with me. And I had older brothers and sisters. So really traumatic piece of information. And I only remember her being quadriplegic and being in a bed the whole time. And she died when I was 7. So, and in those days, which is a very long time ago, there was no counselling. There was no opportunities to talk about it. We knew that she was going to die, and it was kind of accepted that we just needed to get on with life and deal with it. My brother and sister were sent immediately to boarding school. So it was almost as if I'd been bereaved 3 times because they were away for so much of the year. So, I adored my mum. And obviously that had an impact, and I didn't deal with it very well and became very lonely. I then went on with my life. I went to university. I started working banking, which was not my thing at all, but I was just so grateful somebody gave me a job. And then I fell into teaching by mistake when I was about 29 and really felt I'd found my calling and just was passionate about helping teenagers to come out of the shadows and know who they were, and for other people to know that they were there, because so many children just are barely noticed at school. They just, they're in a corner. People don't know what their skills and talents are. So I started creating really big events to bring them out of the shadows and give them opportunities in any kind of way, whether it was sporting or theatrical or as performance or supporting other people, or arranging events, whatever it was, to give them a chance to know what they were capable of doing. It took me a very long time to work out why I was so passionate about doing that, and what I was giving to all of them, including all of my love and attention and focus, and really eyeballing them and showing them that I understood who they were, was because that is what I didn't have for myself. And I had incredibly loving family. And this is not against anybody in the family. It's just the circumstance was my mum was gone. Yes, my brother and sister were at boarding school, and I was very alone. So I worked pretty relentlessly creating these events and running the boarding house and teaching and so on. I had difficulties previously with being bullied in my adult life, and that had left a big scar as well, because I'd never done anything with that either, and there had been no resolution to that. And I was exhausted. I had discovered I had a major tumour in 2012, and I came out of hospital, went back to work too soon, and then all the emotional turmoil of pretty much my life arrived over a few months. I became very angry, and then literally one day I went to a yoga class before school to try and calm the anger, which is something I always professed I don't do anger. Apparently I do. And an ambulance turned on the sirens, flashing lights, and just sped past me in the very early hours of the morning on its way to rescue somebody else. And it was as if somebody had flicked a switch. And I put my foot on the accelerator on a big dual carriageway that, thank God, was empty. And I was driving it at 85, 90 miles an hour, looking for a tree with which to connect. Mm-hmm. And I need to make it clear that it was never my intention to kill myself. I've never been suicidal. I love my life. But at that moment, I wanted to be hurt. This is what was in my head. I need to be hurt so badly that I'm in intensive care. And then people will understand the pain that I'm in.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I got to tell you what's so important about what you just said, and I do want to hear the rest, but what's so important about that is every single one of us has a different mechanism for wanting to be seen and heard and understood.
Yeah.
And a lot of time it arises out of fear and pain.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what happened at that moment. The last thing I saw was the tree trunk in the middle of the windscreen. Literally, I kind of went through this whole process of being within this crash, but I didn't actually touch the tree at all. I have no idea, from seeing it in the windscreen to coming to about 200-300 meters down the road facing the other way, unharmed physically, but emotionally wrecked. I have no idea what happened in between. All I can say really with hand on heart is that it clearly wasn't my time. Right. I wasn't meant to connect. So long story short, I was taken into a London psychiatric hospital for 3 days of assessment, and I didn't come out for 6 months. So I spent 6 months at a very important time in my children's lives in a psychiatric unit, and it was the most extraordinary experience. And I would never have wanted to have gone through everything that took me in there, but I can honestly say I would not have missed it for the world, because it was the greatest privilege of learning and education and self-discovery. And that's really what led me. When I came out, I realized that it was too raw for me to go back into school. I needed to spend time on myself and see what I needed to do with this knowledge and experience. And I've been studying and researching and training and trialing every kind of therapy I can to understand what's going to make a difference. And what I came to realize is that absolutely everything that happens to us in the way we respond to other people within the workplace, within the family, the way we are ourselves, how we respond to trauma, drama, any of these things depends on what happens to us in the first sort of 7 years of our lives. Yes. And we don't have to have had major trauma to end up with mental health problems, but it is literally our emotional response to every tiny moment of every single day in our early years that creates the person that then may be susceptible to having an emotional breakdown or having depression or anxiety. And what is happening is that I'm seeing it in younger and younger children. I'm working with children from 4 upwards, 4 to 24. And everything I'm doing now is about I feel my purpose really is to change the face of mental health by proving that if we work on prevention, and that means starting from really preconception, but certainly from conception onwards, we really can change what the number of adults that have mental health issues in the future. So that's what I'm doing.
Well, it's beautiful, and I want you to know, it's been very interesting to me. What I've been curious about is how many women I have met, either worked with or met through the podcast, that have said similar things, that they wouldn't have wanted anybody to go through what they went through as a child, but it was a catalyst for the work that they do today, for their passion and for their calling for today. So I love that you're saying that. And I will tell you from my point of view in my life, the moment that I hit that wall and had to go through, intense therapy and support was the moment that I realized, oh, this is part of my life work. This is why I'm here. So I just want to talk about our young people. I want you to know, I too have been getting calls to work with younger and younger people. They're not feeling hopeful. They're not feeling seen or heard, especially the children, the young people who have had trauma or abuse or are dealing with identity or binary issues. I mean, they are feeling afraid for their lives. And so can we just talk a little bit about that? Because I feel like we have a calling on humanity to start taking care of our children.
100%. And in so many ways. And yes, I've got children who fall into those categories that I'm working with all the time, as I said, from a regrettably young age. And they're finding it hard to know who they are. They are developing less and less with inbuilt empathy. And I say that on the one hand, but on the other sense, there are children who have such empathy and such understanding about what's going on in the world that is way beyond their years. But there's the trauma they go through is kind of, I suppose, part of their awakening. But when you're living through it, it sure as hell doesn't feel like that.
Right.
So the levels of anxiety, the not knowing who they are, or feeling that they've been born into the wrong body, and then not knowing how on earth they're going to talk to other people about that. But even more simply, having parental separation and divorce, children still aren't talking about it amongst their friends at school because they feel that it's their fault, or that it sets them apart, or they're going to get bullied for it. And yet it's so prevalent. But the most important thing for me is the way we communicate with children as teachers, educators, carers, parents. We don't understand the real impact of every single response that we give to our children, and how that can lay a foundation for a child that doesn't love themselves, or is afraid to speak out, or speaks out too much, or is punchy. But there's so many other things attached to this in terms of neurological development and so on. It's a very complex thing. But actually, if we were all to communicate differently, our children would feel more heard. And that's on every level. It doesn't matter what relationship you have with children. If we actually look them in the eye and talk to them from the heart, you get to the heart of that child. And I've worked with some who have done terrible things in their lives, but actually they are the most beautiful souls. They've just got lost on the way, and they just need someone to pick them up and show them that there is a way forward, and that they are real beautiful people.
Well, I think what you're talking about is a mirror for adults on this planet, because we're going through the same kind of struggles. And some of us are so busy in survival, so busy in trying to take care of ourselves, that we're not going to people who care about us, who see us, who honor us, and then we pass on the trauma that we're in to the children. And then because I think that what's going on in the world today is is people are feeling concerned and powerless, and so that it translates then to our children. And so I guess I would love for you to just say, if I'm a parent and I'm noticing something's going on with my child that feels disconnected, or they've shut down or whatever, what are your tips on what to do to help that child get help?
Well, that's the difficulty, and I don't know what the system is like for you. Here in the UK, it's actually really difficult now because there are so many children that are suffering that there can be a 6 to 9 month wait for them to even get an assessment, let alone any help. So it is a case, regretfully, of parents having to look outside to people that they know. There are lots of services, but if you don't have the money, that's really a really difficult way of moving forward. But I think developing a team relationship with the child, yourselves, and anybody who's involved in their lives, so their teachers, is really important, so that you're all talking in the same way to the individual and making them feel confident that they can speak and they're not going to have an overreaction. And that's really difficult. We're working, we're all busy, we're stressed ourselves. So actually getting the help isn't necessarily very easy, but there are all sorts of routes that there is always a place for straightforward counselling, but there are so many other methods that we need to understand as parents that are can really make a difference to children. So the inclusion of retained primitive reflexes, which very few people know about, really.
What is that?
Well, we're all in our development from the moment we are conceived. There are many, many reflexes that have to develop to help the nervous system to reach its completion. And those reflexes are to help us develop from conception onwards. So, for example, there are ones that help the body to fold in so that it can fit through the birth canal. But once the child's born, it doesn't need that reflex anymore. But just to give you a couple of examples, there's a reflex in a baby that if you push its head up, it will automatically, when it's very, very tiny, it will automatically curl into a fetal position. But we don't need that for the rest of our lives. But if that gets stuck, and they so often do, then that's the child that looks down from the teacher in the class and the board, and then the head goes down, so they fold into the fetal position, and they'll write with their head on their arm. And we can tell them we're blue in the face, sit up when you're writing, sit up. They have no choice because the reflex is making them do that. Wow. We can very, very often get stuck with the fight or flight reflex and the Moro reflex. So if you do this with a baby, it will throw its arms out, and that's to flood it with adrenaline so it can cry out for help in case it's in danger. If that gets stuck, a child is pumping with adrenaline, and you can see it in adults everywhere. And I am somebody who, my reflex is stuck, and I'm working on having that released at the moment. So there's ways of releasing, identifying where these are stuck and the impact that they have on the individual, and then we can release them through brushing techniques. So there's so many different therapies.
Yeah, it's really incredible. So the work I do with people is emotional integration, which is mind body work, helping people identify places within them. Children respond to it really quickly because for some reason they don't have the mechanisms built up like some of the adults. But I want to talk about this book you wrote, and because you got a mission here. Your mission is for mental health here. So what's your book about?
So the book is called There's a Monkey on Your Shoulder, and it is for teenagers, and it literally explores mental health, but through a really good adventure with lots of strange things that happen and peak points all the way through right to the very last page. But what it does is it actually explores the way that I teach about this, which is that I can, and this works for a 4-year-old or a 94-year-old, is that each of us is born with an inner monkey, and the monkey sits on our shoulder and is the metaphor for our subconscious. And what I explain to children is that we are, all of us, a tapestry. And I see each of you as like the outline of you made of thousands of stitches, and the monkeys have a bag of crayons. And for every single emotional response you have, the monkey will colour a thread according to that emotion. So it might be yellow for feeling happy, it might be blue for peace, it could be black for feeling sad, and red for aggression. Every person sees it differently. And I explain how, if you get a big enough patch of, say, black or dark blue, that will build a limiting belief which will affect you for the rest of the life. And what I teach children is how to turn the monkey down. So the voice in the head that says, that kid looked at us, we'll have him later, or don't put your hand up because you'll only get it wrong or people are going to laugh at you. That's the monkey's voice in the head. So in this book, 8 teenagers have awarded the opportunity to go on a personal development week on the north coast of Scotland, which is pretty chilly. And they've never met each other. They're all based on clients. They're very, very real people. They have all the issues that, we see all day long. One is self-harming. Several of them have been severely bullied. The protagonist is a robust 16-year-old who is very dyslexic. He has very little education. He's failed at school. He's always in trouble. And he's given this opportunity to go and do something completely different. And from the outset, the reader knows that there's a monkey on his back, and he's got a baboon named Ortner who's in his school bag or on his shoulder or under his hoodie or wherever. They all have different monkeys. And during the course of all these challenges that they're set on the islands, they are introduced to their inner monkey. And the whole story is about showing teenagers, so by the end of the book, why they may be the way they are, why they respond to others in the way they do, why they held back, or why they're really pushy or angry or whatever, and that there is a way of controlling that. And once you get to know your monkey, you can start to put it on mute and turn the monkey down. So there's a bit of a love relationship that develops between two of them. There's a great friendship between this rough, tough 16-year-old and an 11-year-old with spindly legs and bright red hair who's very shy. And there are some real heart twists at the end as well about what happens to these kids in these challenges and why this course
so incredible.
So that's the book. I'm looking for an agent at the moment because I do genuinely believe in it. I had a wonderful American mentor, Deborah Lanver Engel, who worked with me to get this book finished, which has been an absolute joy. I have got a film director and a film company who are interested in making it into a feature film or a drama series. And the day I get a publishing deal, they will launch that project. So it's exciting. And I'm now writing a whole collection of other books for younger children, also about mental health and the ways to deal with it. So.
Well, okay. So the thing I want to say, first of all, ladies, if you're listening, let's hold the high vision that the perfect agent and publisher comes into her field and it's easy and effortless. I think we can hold that for you because what a wonderful story. What a wonderful concept. How do people find you? How do people find you in the work that you do?
So the website is www.clearminds.org. And people can contact me directly on Tana, Tana, at clearminds.org. Would love to hear from anybody who's got questions. Really happy to answer anything, to share more of what I'm doing, and to hear people's views.
Well, it's awesome. And I'm so grateful to be able to meet you at the beginning of this amazing journey, So I asked the same last question of every guest. This show is called Women Awakening. What do you think is the most important reason for women to awaken?
Oh, gosh. Because we all have it in us to do something really special. And I genuinely believe that. And don't let the trials and tribulations and the trauma that you go through hold you back, because that is part of the whole point of your education. I believe that if we go through real issues, that is a sign saying, this is the springboard for you to take this experience and do something with it. Some of us are in a position to do just that. Others, it's too soon and we shut down. But we have it in our hands to make difference, to bring about change, all of us. And all we need to do is feel the passion to to work out what it is we're truly passionate about and go with the flow. And I mean, we're game changers. We can make so much happen. And it's a hell of a fun
Wow.
journey too.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. I'm excited to know you. I'm excited to see what's happening. And as things unfold, we'll have you back on the show and you can tell us all what's happened. I'm thrilled about that.
Thank you
So
so much.
ladies, let me say this. I say the same thing to you every week. You're a masterpiece in the making. You are extraordinary. You are dynamic and mighty. You're here for a purpose. There would be a hole in the universe if you weren't here in this moment, which is why it is so important for you to stand in your power, stand up, bring your gifts, shine your light, and connect to your passion. I hope you will come back here every week and meet another woman, because they're examples of what is possible, and you can do the exact same thing in your way. If you need more support, go to cynthiajames.net. I'm thrilled to be your host, and I will see you next time.